I'd be interested to hear our final speaker of the evening, and then of course we'll throw it open to yourselves on the floor. Paul O'Toole is Director General of FÁS, and before joining the organisation, at some stage I think to be called Solace, Mr O'Toole had been Chief Executive of Tourism Ireland since July 2001. That of course was established under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement and operates under the auspices of the North-South Ministerial Council, and had responsibility for the overseas promotion of tourism for the whole island of Ireland. And that indeed was spectacularly successful in global tourism-wise, particularly golf-related tourism, which was massively expanded under his stewardship. He's 18 years of senior management experience and extensive exposure to both public and private sectors in both jurisdictions. A fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, he holds a Master of Business Studies degree from UCD's Michael Smurford Graduate School of Business, and he's a native of the beautiful Garden County of Wicklow. Ladies and gentlemen, the Director General of FÁS, Paul O'Toole.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to agree with a lot of what Des and Eileen said, but not straight away. Okay? A couple of observations. We're talking about education. Education usually starts with young people. I wonder what our average age here is this evening. I wonder, when we're talking about the education system and the needs of enterprise, and I'm choosing to use the word enterprise rather than industry, have we lost out on some of the key stakeholders here to be part of the debate? Just a thought. A second observation, and I was listening to Eileen and somewhat to Des and about this topic, about the expectations, and Ken mentioned it as well. But just a couple of observations on that. When I was in my 20s and looking for a job, probably I had aspirations then. I probably had the sweaty palm, and I probably wanted to be MD, and I was completely naive and my life skills weren't developed. Maybe they're still not, but I recognise those applicants that presented themselves to you, because I did as well. And at 20-something, I absolutely knew everything, and I was sure about everything. And I'm in my 50s now, and I'm sure about practically nothing. So I don't know what that says about life skills, but that's my story. My part of the equation and that of my colleagues is in further education and training. So what we do is we provide entry, intermediate and technical skills to young people and to others who are coming back in education to give them a better chance of finding a route to employment. To do that, we must have a better dialogue with employers, and right now we are initiating for the first time a strategy and a policy for further education and training, and fundamental to that will be a role for enterprise in the dialogue, in the discussion and ultimately in the decision making regarding the future of further education and training. I absolutely and passionately believe in the power of education to unlock the potential of every individual in this country and allow them to find the talents from within themselves, to find expression for that, and to make a contribution to society, enterprise and the economy. And I believe that fundamentally. The discussion really should be about how well we're doing and can we make it better, and of course we can. And I'm going to come back to that at the end of my couple of points. But I suppose when you arrive at a big statement like that in a position, where are you coming from? And when you're in a senior public service position, which I am, we're often faceless individuals, really. We have names and titles and CVs, and we sit in our suits in big offices up in Dublin, and we've lost touch with the real world, and actually we don't understand a whole lot, and if only we got in touch, we'd understand everything a lot better. Well, I do come from the Garden County of Wicklow. I was raised about 12 miles from here in Dunlavin, just outside Dunlavin. I didn't know this about Bernard, but I was born in London. My parents were economic immigrants from Ireland in the 50s. My father left formal education at 12, my mother a little bit later. They went to England for economic circumstances. They came back to Ireland to raise their family. Both of them, through their own life experience, had a passionate belief in the power of education. So the opportunity I was given in the National School in Dunlavin to learn reading, writing and arithmetic, the opportunities, and our only opportunities for second level education in what was then Dunlavin Vocational School, is Dunlavin Community College now, those opportunities that gave me a chance of a second level formal education allowed me to develop myself and progress in my career in the path that I chose. I was fortunate to be able to engage and acquire a profession, accounting, and I had opportunities to access my education and training in that discipline, and I was further fortunate to engage with fourth level through the masters that I did. Education in Ireland has served me well. All of us in this room, we come from our different backgrounds. I don't know what you do, whether it's enterprise or industry or education or what people do. But if we're the product of the education system of Ireland, or perhaps other education systems, we have to ask, in whatever state or position that we've reached, has the education system served us well? Because we've reached positions, whether it's in enterprise, in high enterprise and industry, or within the public sector or education. So somehow, with all of the challenges and perhaps the failings of the education system, somehow it has helped us to develop our life skills, it has helped us to develop our potential, and it has helped us to reach whatever position that we've happened to reach. Okay? There's a lot of good things happening, and Eileen made that point in her presentation. But I think we're letting ourselves down on a range of fronts, and I might try to address those. I think in Ireland, where we've reached in our education system with its strengths and its weaknesses reflects our values and culture as a society. And through our history, we have developed this sense that education and educational attainment must be progressive. So we've encouraged most of our young people to aspire to a third level education, a degree, a higher degree, or a profession. And that's worthy. That is absolutely worthy. But most jobs in the economy and in society and enterprise actually need different skills. And unlike the Germanys and the Austrias, the Switzerlands and the Netherlands, we do not value vocational education. We do not value the systems of learning which teach people practical skills in a taught environment, in an institution, and practical skills in the job. What Des proposed and what Eileen referred to as well. So we have created this sense of attainment and worth being around the level of education to which you aspire and to reach. And that somehow, if you do something lesser or different, well, it's because you can't quite cut it. That's unfair, that's wrong, and that does not recognise that people learn and acquire their skills in different ways, and they have the capacity to contribute to economy, society, and enterprise in different ways. So to the extent that the educational system now needs to advance, perhaps because the education system has developed and evolved to reflect what we as people value. So perhaps if we're looking for a different paradigm about how we engage and how education and training can better serve the needs of enterprise, perhaps we need a discussion on our own value systems. This child went to college because they could. You're going to college, if not, I'll send you down to Foss. That has been said to so many young people time and time again. So an apprenticeship, yes, incredibly valuable. But what about the people that we need to work in our shops, our restaurants, our pubs, on our assembly lines, on the enterprise, different enterprise? What about those people? Are they somehow, just because they can't hack it at a degree level which is required, are they somehow lesser in our society? Of course not. Everyone has a contribution, everybody learns, and everybody can contribute differently. And if we want to remodel our education system, we need to continue having third-level institutions which aspire to and become the best in the world, the best in class. But we also need to recognise how the countries like Germany and Austria, who survived the recession better than us, how they manage that. Because they have centuries of experience where enterprise is centrally involved in the development of practical skills, with the state providing the adjunct of formal training. And are we ready for that, and are we willing to do it? Second last point. Listening was referred to many times this evening. Does education and training listen? Insufficiently. Okay? We're all running around. I can tell you, in our case, what we do is we provide entry-level and intermediate skills to people. And honestly, we're running to stand still. We've had to downsize, remodel, attack quality, attack programs, cut cost, all of the things that I'm sure industries had to do as well. And what we haven't done is take enough time out to develop a different approach, and we're going to do that. And one of the roles of SULAS going forward will be to develop a genuinely new approach which will involve a dialogue with enterprise about how we can use the state's investment in further education and training to better serve the learner, and by better serving the learner, serve enterprise well. So that's what we intend to do. We need to listen better. But the request to industry and enterprise is when you come and talk to the system, and you talk to people like me or Bernard or others who have the job and the responsibility to respond to what you say, please come with a coherent voice. One of the challenges of listening is to take from the clutter the core messages of how we can serve you better. So that is, I suppose, the request to industry and enterprise this evening. And the last point, and I say this because there aren't young people in the room, just in what I do, I get to see our young people in action. I get to see them most recently, and a few people here were that at a group of Sean Ash's young people doing a presentation of their skills in singing and theatre. Over the next few weeks, I will be presenting certificates over 1,000 young craftspeople who have emerged through the apprenticeship system. Ireland went to the World Skills Competition again this year. We took the aircraft technician of the world for the 4th time in a row. We also took plumbing, a gold. 60 countries competing with craft skills, and our young people demonstrated that. And when I look at the challenge and the mess we're in and how we're trying to climb our way out of it, and I get to see those young people, they're the future. That's our responsibility. And if there's anything that gives me hope, it is the quality of those young people. And yes, they're immature and they're naive and they have too many expectations. But bloody hell, isn't that wonderful that we have that. That's our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Your first point, by the way, about being 20 and knowing everything, I think everybody will recognise that, and at 50 knowing very little. It prompts just a little anecdote that of the story that's similar in nature, that at 14 I couldn't get over how ignorant my father was and how little he knew. And by the time I was 35, I was amazed at how much he had learned. And it's the same kind of idea, you know. We all start out in that point. If I might start at the end, Paul, and I think that's something that probably encapsulates everything that has been said tonight, that who serves who? If we're to arrive at any solution to this, that is a win-win situation for all concerned, not least, might I add now, in Paul's context, the young person concerned, because ultimately they are the most important cog in this particular wheel. The word dialogue. There must be a dialogue. Rather than business taking over education and saying, this is what we need, go do it. Rather than education saying, this is what we provide, like it or lump it. The dialogue is there, the coherent voice, a statement of common interests that is inclusive rather than exclusive, that treats the person from the human perspective, the life skills, and treats the person, I suppose, to use that word and I use so with respect, as a commodity, as a production vehicle, not just for themselves or for the company, but for a contribution to the greater of society. I absolutely agree with you, and I'm biased in this sense, because I'm a product of the education system. I worked in it for nearly 30 years. I think we have a fantastic education system, not without many shortcomings. But I think and I repeat this point and I'll leave it out to the floor, that in focusing on third level only, we're already dealing with outcomes that are possibly dysfunctional. We need also to have that dialogue with our secondary school system in particular. And there's marvellous work going on in the second level schools. I think of the Kildare Enterprise Board. I have the honour every year of emceeing their annual Schools Awards, the mini companies that from the transition year. And the quality of projects and thinking, informed thinking, constructive thinking, questioning, analysis that's coming through, it leaves me stunned. And I mean, I know we can say no exception proves the rule, but when you take a young lady who won it a year or two ago at 16 years of age for an innovation she came up in relation to putting a sole on your shoe that's coloured red and makes everyone think you're, I'm not very authoritative in this area now, but that you're walking around in Louis Vuitton. And months later she's trading as far away as Brazil. The innovation is going on in the schools, but we have to think of something here. The one word I don't think that I've heard, maybe it hasn't, forgive me if it hasn't been mentioned, resources. If we're to achieve what industry wants and what education wants, everything is predicated on resources. If we don't have enough teachers in our schools at second level, if they're dealing with classes in 30 and they're engaged in crowd control rather than education, well then they're on a hiding to nothing. In universities where the numbers have exploded in recent years, if that's a case of dealing hugely in classes of 100, 200, I'm agog at when I look at the current education theatres or lecture theatres in some of the universities, and it's like being at a rock concert. And as to what specific message and training you can get through and how you can collate all of that. The challenges are there. I have found all the perspectives most illuminating. And I think the message that's coming out is, yes, there are a different series of needs have been identified, a different series of good points have been identified. The question is, how can we marry all to everybody's advantage, both the industrialists, the educators, but above all, the consumer of that education, the young person in question.